All right, Ulises, we continue our player review series, and today we're going to spot the light on reliever Pete Fairbanks.
Yes, we are. So get your crazy eyes on for this episode because we're going to talk all about it right now.
You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, my name is Kevin Weiss.
I'm Ulises Sambrano.
And we are the host of the Locked On Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making us your very first listen every day. Also, be sure to check out and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Locked On Rays. Subscribe to all of our podcasting platforms, social media, Instagram, and Twitter. And send us those voice memos and email questions to lockedonrays@gmail.com. All right, let's dive into Pete Fairbanks. We'll discuss the good, the bad, his potential future with the team, and give him a final grade for 2022. Ulises, Pete Fairbanks.
Pete Fairbanks, just let's get the obvious out of the way. He was terrific, people.
Yeah.
So if we could just make this whole episode what went well, yeah, a whole lot of things went well for him. 24 innings pitched, 1.13 ERA, a FIP of 0.86, a ridiculous 43.7 K rate to only a 3.4 walk rate. He was a 1.2 F4 player in only 24 innings. Just impressive. An ERA plus of 327, a 327. That is so disgusting. It's incredible. If I have to pick one thing that makes me happy that he worked on, what did I always complain with Pete Fairbanks, Kevin?
The leadoff walk and just sometimes we'd see the control and or command issues with him.
100%. And there was a massive drop in the walk rate, and that was 100% the key of his success in 2022. I mean, look at the walk rates from his years past: 10.1%, 12%, 11.1%. It was at 3.4%. 3.4.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a massive improvement. And we all thought that this was the type of player that he could be, but it wasn't going to happen with the leadoff walks, the traffic on the bases. It was never going to happen. This year, he really, maybe this was his homework during rehabbing, which we will get into in the next segment. But this was a massive improvement that you could see how we could lead to really good numbers for him this year.
Yeah, clearly the Rays trusted him in important situations and scenarios because he tied the team lead in saves. Yes, only 8, but let's also consider that Pete Fairbanks missed the first 3.5 months of the year due to a lat injury, which I guess that kind of blows the gasket on my bad or what went wrong for Pete Fairbanks. But yeah, so that and you mentioned the strikeout rate and the walk rate with Pete Fairbanks. That is very reminiscent of Nick Anderson 2019 2020 numbers. And again, Pete Fairbanks, power pitcher to the max at 6'6". He's gonna give you that 99-100 mile an hour fastball, and then he'll do that basically 60% of the time, and then work the slider off that 38 to 40% of the time. And I think we had always hoped or had the impression that Pete Fairbanks, with his intensity, his demeanor, his presence, his stuff, that he looks like a closer that was, built, developed, and fostered in a test tube. If you were to say, okay, who's the closer on the Rays? Who's the most intimidating relief pitcher on the Rays. You just point to and look at Pete Fairbanks and Crazy Eyes and his size and everything. So hopefully this is a turning point for him, assuming he can stay healthy for a full season, that he is that de facto or most relied upon closer for the Rays. No longer do the Rays have Nick Anderson. No longer do they have JT Chagua. Yeah, they've got other solid guys in that bullpen, but that might also be a little premonition for Pete Fairbanks to really need to step up. And let me also add this, just a little pontificating here about Pete Fairbanks. He's been around for a little bit now with the Rays since 2019, since the Rays traded Nick Solak for him with the Rangers. That's a pretty and I mean, we can even fast forward to, he's most likely going to be on the team in 2023, but pretty solid longevity there for a relief pitcher in Pete Fairbanks. And I think that the Rays have absolutely gotten the better end of the deal, because Nick Solak is basically a replacement level infielder for the Rangers, doesn't provide all that much, where Pete Fairbanks has certainly had major moments and impact for this team over the years.
Yeah, I love that you bring that, because the Nick Anderson in 2019, when you make that comparison, I think I've said this in one of the episodes a few weeks ago when we were talking about him no longer being with the team. That 2019, I will forever have those numbers ingrained in me. 41 strikeouts and 2 walks. That was what he did, Nick Anderson, that year. This year, again, in only 24 innings, Pete Fairbanks had, let me count it, 38 strikeouts and 3 walks. I mean, so close to just being as good as Nick Anderson was. Unreal season by Pete Fairbanks. And when you talk about, what is that, 29, 10, 1, 2, already 4 seasons with the Rays, for being a reliever, that's pretty massive. And I think they knew that the ceiling was there. They just had to unlock it, and he had to unlock it himself. Again, it's not that the Rays are magicians by any means. They're really good at effective communication. I think that's, if we try to just bear it down, they find something, they see something, and then they have to communicate it in a way that the player will respond well to it, that they will understand it. That's the biggest key. I mean, you don't think the Yankees have that information? You don't think the Dodgers have that? Of course they have that information. It would be ludicrous to say that the Rays only have this thing. But what they're really good at is that communication to the player.
Yes.
That's where they make the money. And people really sometimes don't realize that that's the secret sauce that the Rays have. So they did that. They did that with Pete. Pete listened. And also the other side of that is you can only have effective communication if from the other side you're being heard, you're being listened to, and you're being understood. And Pete Fairbanks did all those things and then put them to work. And this year he kind of unlocked himself. And it's not only the walk rate, the left on base percentage, which is my favorite stat to look at for a while now on pitchers. 89%. The strand rate. I mean, that is so good. Almost 90%. So essentially 90% he will strand them. The runners on base. That's so fantastic on a reliever, especially one that will have high leverage situations. And you want to strand runners because you're probably in a 1 or 2 run game in a later inning. That's when you want to strand those runners. So terrific stat by him. And the last thing I think we should definitely point out, that he continues to drop the home rate per 9 rate as well as the exit velocity. So he's just becoming even more dominating. And it's not like he's shifting what he does. He's a fastball slider pitcher. Fastball 63% of the time, slider 37% of the time. So it's not like he's revolutionizing who he is. But it's just he's better at commanding and controlling the strike zone. And when you're throwing 99 at the top, and then throwing that mean slider to go with it that has late movement and late sharp movement to the ground. It's nearly unhittable when he's going well.
Yeah, and the slider almost looks like a 12-6 curveball in some instances, and being able now to throw that in the zone for strikes, I think, is definitely something that helps him as well. And I'm glad you brought up the communication piece, because I think that's something that not enough industries or baseball organizations do. Is, they might have the analytics folks and the coaches and the players, they might have, all the pieces, but making sure that everybody is on the same page and can understand and digest and know what's being told to them. It's a very, very, very underrated part of anything and everything, I'll say. Which actually, that kind of ties in with not necessarily what went wrong with Pete Fairbanks, but what maybe could go wrong with him this upcoming season. Before we get to that, we have to tell you about betonline.net. Betonline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. You can get all the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. Football, basketball, soccer, and esports, they have it all at betonline.net. As you know and should know, it is the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. So head over to that website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, it is where the game starts. Now, before we get into what went wrong with Pete Fairbanks, kind of going back to the communication piece, something that maybe could affect him and the rest of the bullpen in 2023 and maybe beyond, is the fact that Stan Borowski is no longer a part of that group as a coach, because he provided a lot of leadership and instruction and communication and brought together a group that could at times be loose and unfocused, and basically harping the message of attack the strike zone. You have good enough stuff, attack the strike zone. And I think that is something that will need to continue to be reinforced. And whoever, I think they've already named the coach, whatever, but whoever the replacement for Stan Borowski needs to make sure he builds a rapport with Pete Fairbanks and others, and make sure that he can garner their trust and simplify some of the data and information that is coming in. So I'll just leave it like that as far as that point goes.
Yeah, no, I think a loss like Stan is definitely going to hurt for the team. But just to play devil's advocate, everybody and their mother and grandmother and grand uncles could not get enough of Jim Hickey. Jim Hickey was the pitching whisperer. My goodness, we will never be as lucky as having Jim Hickey. Kyle Snyder came in. And then now what do people? Oh my goodness, Kyle Snyder is the pitching whisperer. So I understand Stan is a great loss, but I think the Rays, again, the secret sauce is knowing how to communicate well and effectively. And I think they hire people, especially in the roles where they have to communicate well. That is one of the biggest strengths for those positions. Those people that get hired and put in those situations know how to do that very well.
No, I think that's definitely one of the Rays' strong suits, is hiring the right people, whether it be scouts or coaches. Clearly, as you can see, other organizations trying to pluck those guys away constantly and continuously. So they obviously have a pipeline, and they know who to target for which position. So I'm sure they'll be settled in just fine. It might just take a little bit of growing pains and adjustments there. But as far as the negatives or what went wrong with Pete Fairbanks this past season, the only thing I really have is, as I mentioned or alluded at the top, is missing those first 3.5 months due to a lat injury. And then in the postseason, he had that right index finger numbness. And this is kind of bringing about a larger maybe issue, is can he stay healthy and effective and productive for an entire season? We know in 2021, he had that right shoulder inflammation and he threw 42 innings. And going back to his past, he's one of those 2 Tommy John surgery guys. So that is my big concern, my big red flag for Pete Fairbanks in 2022 and going beyond is, can he deliver 60 to 65 innings without falling apart?
And I think that's the 2023 goal for him. And can I stay healthy for the whole season?
Yeah.
Now that I've put in this type of season, I know it's only 24 innings, but if he can stay healthy and provide these same results, you're looking at, podium type of pitcher. If he puts up these numbers, Kevin, he's there talked about with Edwin Diaz and Manuel Clase and Pete Fairbanks.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of company he will keep if he is able to post up 60 plus innings, because 24 innings is nice and great, but you can't be relied upon, and so that we're in the negative segment, and that's a negative. If you can't be relied to be a high leverage guy for the majority of the season, regardless of injuries. And they have been different types of injuries. So it's not like one thing that he hasn't really gotten checked out or he hasn't really gotten well for. It's been a couple of different things. And the two Tommy John, we've talked about that. When will it be that in baseball, it used to be one Tommy John like a lot. Now we're seeing two Tommy Johns. Like, will there be a time in baseball where now we see three Tommy Johns as normal as we see two Tommy Johns? I know Johnny Venters might be a guy that had three Tommy Johns. I don't remember. I don't recall the other guys, but it's insane. And again, the Rays do take the high risk, high reward with those guys. Drew Rasmussen being another two Tommy John pitchers. So I think you nailed it right there with the negative being primarily the health aspect with Pete. But if I want to nitpick, just to nitpick, because this isn't really a negative, it's just more of a question for the front office, which I know listens to the show. He was only used more than one inning at an appearance this whole season. So my question is it because he was coming back from injury? Is it because they might not think he is an effective up and down kind of guy? Is it because they were saving bullets? What was the reason? Because if you used him that one time, I believe it was I had it written down and I forgot. I think it was a September game that he was used, early September game, for I think an inning and a third. If you're able to use him one time, what prevents you from using him like that a second or a third time? Why was that game so important that you needed to use him like that, but not later in the season? So that for me kind of triggered like a question mark, like, so just one time you used him differently than other times, and it wasn't in the playoffs. It was just a random game. Like, what made that game so special that you completely went outlier on him?
So are you suggesting that the Rays should extend him to more than a one inning guy, or you're just wondering why in that particular situation they used him for more than one inning?
The latter. I'm wondering why. Because like if out of 24 or so outings that he had, only one he was used differently, what made that time differently? Was there no fresh arms in the bullpen and you really needed one extra? It's odd. You only used him for an inning. Why was that day so darn special? And if you're telling me, well, there weren't any fresh arms in the bullpen and you didn't know that, okay, because as a fan, you don't know who has aches and pains. Fine. But one stinking inning, one out, not even one inning, one out. Why? Why was that that was so peculiar? Were you trying to maybe see if he could respond well to that so that you could use him like that during the playoff run that never was? I don't know. I want to know.
Yeah, maybe there was a lefty on deck, or maybe those first three outs. I don't know. I don't know what the situation is per se, but maybe you got those first three outs with 6 pitches, and that fourth batter, that fourth out, it took him another 8 pitches. So I don't know. I'm sure there's an answer to that question, but I'm perfectly fine with continuing to use Pete Fairbanks in one inning, and if there comes a time where if you have to use them back-to-back days, so be it. And that kind of brings us to the future with Pete Fairbanks. The Rays, of course, not surprisingly, tendered him a contract for $1.5 million. So whether he goes to arbitration or takes that figure, something tells me he's going to be a part of the Rays in 2023. But my question leads more towards, do you, Ulises, see Pete Fairbanks leading the team in saves?
I think it would be a tremendous change of pace for everybody to know the roles. I know people say it doesn't matter. Everybody can get a save. You get a save. You get a save. And it's been quirky and it's been nice and it's been okay. But really, I think a guy with his talent and the season that he put up, I don't think you waste that. I think you give him the ninth, give him the ball, and he's that guy.
Yeah, and also the Rays, that would be a change of pace for sure. And he could technically, even if they do the creativity of, hey, we're going to have 10 different guys get saves, that he still could obviously lead the team in saves. I guess it follows up to that. Do you see him getting only, it also depends on if he stays healthy and the number of innings that he pitches. Do you see him as a guy that gets only 15 saves or a guy that gets 25 plus saves in 2020?
If he's healthy and the Rays are good, yeah, I think you could see him go plus 20 saves. Plus 25 saves would be fantastic because that means that he's staying healthy. He's getting those chances. I would like to see that. That would be a really good thing for him.
It'd also be great to see him get 55 to 60 innings pitched. That would also be really nice too with that. Again, there's no JT Seguin, there's no Nick Anderson. Andrew Kittredge is hurt. So it really is Pete Fairbanks, Jason Adam, and Brooks Raley, and I guess, JP Fireeisen that are kind of leading the ship, so to speak. But Ulises, we have to tell the audience about something called SimpliSafe.
Well, SimpliSafe was named the best home security system of 2022, Kevin, by U.S. News and World Report for a third year in a row. And that is because your family, your home comes first when you're using SimpliSafe. You actually can have 24/7 monitoring agents or SimpliSafe tech support staff to help you whenever you need. They're always there in an emergency. You can do SimpliSafe and include it into your house by going to simplisafe.com/lockedonmlb. I'll say it again, simplisafe.com/lockedonmlb. You get 50% off any new SimpliSafe system at simplisafe.com/lockedonmlb. That's 50% off. You're not going to find that anywhere else. So again, use simplisafe.com/lockedonmlb. There's no save like SimpliSafe is what we say.
All right. So we've gotten through a lot of Pete Fairbanks here. I guess it's grade time, red marker, red pin time. What are you giving Pete Fairbanks with the numbers he put up, and also the health or lack thereof for him as well?
This is as close as a tremendous season. The only thing was he made his debut in mid-July, and that was through health issues. So I understand people might not want to take that into consideration. We do in these player reviews. You got to post up. That's just part of the game. If we're using it as a positive, then we got to use it as a negative. And we use it as a positive for Yandy Diaz posting up and Randy Rosarena and Taylor Walls posting up. Pete didn't post up. Then again, his numbers were terrific. So it's not like I'm going to give him a horrible grade. I'm going to give him an A+, a 98.
Okay. I'm giving him also an A, but an A- because I do put a lot of weight on the health and availability factor. So whatever the highest A- grade is, whether that's a 92, 93, depending on what school you go to, that's what I'm giving Mr. Pete Fairbanks. Now, if he had contributed, 40 innings, say he missed a month and a half instead of 3.5 months, then I would, of course, been more generous to him. At the very least, at the very end of the day, a terrific season, and the best season that we've seen from Pete Fairbanks in a Rays uniform. And hopefully that we will continue to see that in 2023 and beyond. So there it is, Pete Fairbanks. He can download this episode and put it in his scrapbook. Sure, he'd be happy about that. Thank you for making the Locked On Rays podcast your very first listen every day. Now make your second listen the Locked On Sports Today podcast. That is also free and available on all platforms. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Stay safe, and we will talk to you tomorrow.